Hi, Panthers. I'm Mrs. Harrison, and we're going to continue our Cyclops journey with Odysseus. And we are going to start with video 7 at line 292. So we are in our close readers, and we are on page 107 at line 292. So when dawn spread out her fingertips of rose, the rams began to stir, moving for pasture, and peals of bleating echoed round the pens, where dams with udders full called for milking. Blinded and sick with pain from his head wound, the master stroked each ram, then let it pass. But by men riding on the pectoral fleece, the giant's blind hands blundering never found. Last of them all, my ram, the leader, came, weighted by wool and me with my meditations. The Cyclops patted him, and then he said, "Sweet cousin Ram, why lag behind the rest in the night cave? You never linger so, but graze before them all, and go afar to crop sweet grass, and take your stately way leading along the streams, until at evening you run to be the first one in the fold. Why now so far behind? Can you be grieving over your master's eye? That carrion rogue and his accursed companions burnt it out when he had conquered all my wits with wine. Nobody will not get out alive, I swear. Oh, had you brain and voice to tell where he may be now, dodging all my fury. Bashed by this hand and bashed on this rock wall, his brains would strew the floor, and I should have rest from the outrage. Nobody worked upon me. He sent us into the open then. Close by, I dropped and rolled clear of the ram's belly, going this way and that to untie the men. With many glances back, we rounded up his fat, stiff-legged sheep to take aboard, and drove them down to where the good ship lay. We saw as we came near our fellows' faces shining. Then we saw them turn to grief, telling those who had not fled from death. I hushed them, jerking head and eyebrows up, and in a low voice told them, "Load this herd, move fast, and put the ship's head toward the breakers." They all pitched in at loading, then embarked and struck their oars into the sea, far out, as far offshore as shouted words would carry. I sent a few back to the adversary. "O Cyclops, would you feast on my companions? Puny am I in a caveman's hands. How do you like the beating that we gave you, you damn cannibal? Eater of guests under your roof? Zeus and the gods have paid you." The blind thing in his doubled fury broke a hilltop in his hands and heaved it after us. Ahead of our black prow it struck and sank, whelmed in a spuming geyser, a giant wave that washed the ship's stern foremost back to shore. I got the longest boat hook out and stood fending us off with furious nods to all to put their backs into a racing stroke. Row, row, or perish. So the long oars bent, kicking the foam sternward, making head until we drew away and twice as far. Now, when I cut my hands, I heard the crew in low voices protesting. "God's sake, Captain, why bait the beast again? Let him alone. That tidal wave he made on the first throw all but beached us. All but stove us in. Give him our bearing with your trumpeting. He'll get the rage and lob a boulder. Aye, he'll smash our timbers and our heads together. I would not heed them in my glorying spirit, but let my anger flare and yelled, 'Cyclops! How were you put to shame and blinded? Tell me. Odysseus, raider of cities, took your eye, Laertes' son, whose home's on Ithaca.'" What happened there? Let us go check it out and see what happened. All right, so we are back at page 107 at line 292. So when dawn spread out her fingertips of rose. We've heard that before many, many times. All right, so this is how we know it's a brand new day. So this is how we know the sun is rising. Dawn and her fingertips of rose. So let's see, I should have probably made it red, but this is the color that came up. All right, so it is dawn, and we have our fingertips of rose right here. I'm not very good at underlining that. All right, so the rams began to stir, and peals of bleating right here. Peals of bleating echoed. All right. So that is the sound that sheep make. So when they are, they needed to be milked. It was time in the morning. So they're making all the sounds right there. All right. So the Cyclops is blinded and sick with pain from his head wound. And he's reaching out and stroking his rams as they go outside to be milked. So they're going back outside. They've been in the cave for the evening. And so he's trying to get comfort by petting them, just like if he had a dog or something. What he doesn't notice as he's petting the sheep as they go out the door is that the men are strapped underneath. That's why Odysseus had them be underneath, because if they were on top, then the Cyclops would have felt them. So the men are riding on the pectoral fleece. So they're riding on the chest of the sheep as they're going out. And then he says, the giant's blind hands blundering never found. So he never found them. He never felt them as he was petting the sheep as they went outside. And then, because, Odysseus decided to choose the largest ram for himself, it's a little red flag to the Cyclops, because he says here, sweet cousin ram, why lag behind the rest? You never linger so. So he's already noticed that, wait, the biggest ram he's always the first one to go out, not the last one. So it's already been a red flag. Is Odysseus going to get in trouble? That's what we must wonder here. So then we find out he's trying to get comfort from his sheep. He says, can you be grieving over your master's eye? Are you worried about your master's eye? Are you sad about what happened to me? And then he says, oh, if you, because he's cursing Odysseus, and he knows exactly what happened, because he's saying, they made me drunk with the wine that was so potent and made me so that I couldn't defend myself. And then he's still calling Odysseus nobody. He says, he will not get out alive, I swear. And then he says, the sheep, I wish you could tell me where he was in all of this, not knowing that he's actually tied below the sheep at this very moment. All right. He's swearing that he's going to bash nobody or Odysseus against the rock wall, and his brains will be strewed across the floor. All right. So then he sends the sheep outside, and that is when right here, as they're looking back, Odysseus, he's looking back, he rolls out from underneath his ram, and then he's untying his men from the sheep outside, because the Cyclops doesn't see them there. So then he says, let's see here. He unstraps them with many glances back, rounded up. Wait, why are they rounding up the sheep? His fat, stiff-legged sheep to take aboard and drove them down to where the good ship lay. Uh-oh. So right here, he's going to steal the sheep now. So he didn't just use them to escape. He's going to steal them and put them on a ship. All right, so he's taking them down to the ship. We saw as we came near our fellows' faces. So now, this is the first time the guys who were left back on the ship are seeing them come back. They don't know what's been going on while they were in the cave. But this is when they realize we saw them. So we saw as we came near our fellows' faces shining. So they're excited to see them, but then they start realizing not everybody is coming back with them. So they're turned to grief, and they're tallying. So they're counting those who not fled from death. So right here, kind of a hashtag rest in peace to those guys who didn't make it. So they're kind of grieving right now. And, but Odysseus says in a low voice, load this herd and move fast. So he's showing his leadership skills right here. He's like, we don't have time to grieve right now. We need to just get in and get these sheep on the ship and get out of here. Far out, as far offshore as shouted words could carry. Uh-oh. As far offshore as shouted words could carry. Oh no. I sent a few back to the adversary. So now he's yelling at the Cyclops. Why would he do that? They're almost gone. Oh, Cyclops, would you feast on my companions? Puny am I in a caveman's hand. How do you like the beating we gave you, you damn cannibal, eater of guests? So right here, he's saying you're a terrible person. You didn't take care of your guests. Remember, he didn't do the xenia. He didn't provide food. Instead, he was a cannibal and he ate the men. So he's kind of taunting him about, look what we did to you. All right. I think he should have just gotten out of there. The blind thing that they're talking about right here is this would be the Cyclops right here. He's doubled in fury. So now he's so angry, he broke a hilltop in his hands. So keep in mind, Cyclops, giant dude. He grabs part of a mountain right here. He grabs part of this mountain and he's now chucking it at the boat. So right here, a hilltop in his hands heaved it after us. Ahead of our black prow, it struck. Oh no. So that's the bow of the boat, the front of the boat. A giant wave washed the ship's stern foremost back to shore. So he hucked this mountainside so far that it went in front of the boat and it starts pushing the boat back towards the island. So now all of a sudden Odysseus has to scramble. He says, I got the longest boat hook out and stood fending us off with furious nods to put their backs. So he's like looking at all like row, row, row or perish. So row as fast as you can or we're going to die. So row, row or perish. So the long oars bent, kicking. Remember, it's not a motor. They got to use the oars. So the long oars bent, kicking the foam storm, making head until we drew away and twice as far. Now when I cupped my hands, when we cup our hands, we're going to yell. I heard the crew in low voices protesting. They're like, not again. You already got us in trouble. So that's why they're saying here, God sake, Captain, why bait the beast? Why are you telling him where we are? You're going to tell. So with your trumpeting, so with you yelling, you're telling him our location. So that's what they're not very happy with him right now. So that's what we're also looking at. So he's being a little selfish in his taunting. And then he says, how you were put to shame and blinded. Tell him, Odysseus, raider of cities, took your eye. Wait a minute. He told him at first he was nobody. Now he's telling him who he is. Odysseus, Laertes' son, whose home is on Ithaca. Oh dear. He just gave it away. He's taunting him. So this would be his pride is getting in the way. He's endangering his men now with his pride because he's trying to show off. Yeah, I did that. Tell everybody I did that. The problem is we kind of know who Cyclops' dad is, right? Poseidon, god of the sea. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like a very good time to be prideful. So again, we're talking about the character strengths and flaws. Pride might probably be one of those flaws. So I'm going to leave you here. You will be starting your next video at line 365. Thank you so much.